Coming across a function, a square root function that's in the form of square root of a squared, we would think that its result would be just an a, because a times a makes an a squared. But we might want to reconsider that if we see something, for example, what about if we had a 2 squared? That would equal the square root of 4, which would equal a 2. Well, that makes sense. Well, what if we have then a negative 2 squared? Reducing that down, negative 2 squared produces the square root of 4, which is also 2. So notice here I had a positive 2, through the function became a positive 2, but I also started with a negative 2 and also produced that positive 2. So when we take that in consideration, we need to be aware that the square root of a squared equals a. We're going to say that this result is the absolute value of a. Let's look at a couple examples to help kind of clear up some of the idea what might be happening. Let's look at the square root of negative 6 squared. What should that equal? That should equal the inside, the absolute value of that, and the absolute value of negative 6 is a 6. Let's look at another example. What is it? X plus 5. The square root of x plus 5 squared. Again, we want to be tempted to say, well, the solution is just an x plus a 5. But we have to remember, we're looking at the absolute values of those. Another example, the square root of 25, x to the 6th. What might that be? What times 5 produces a 25? That'd be a 5. What times what makes an x to the 6th? We'll learn again and practice more. That's x to the 3rd. It's the absolute values of those. The absolute value of 5 is a 5. The absolute value of x cubed, don't know, depends on x. So we'll leave that within the absolute value expression. Lastly, say I have the square root of x squared minus 4x plus 4. What can we do with that? Well, we might recognize that as a perfect square trinomial. This is the same thing as x minus 2 squared. And now I can recognize it in this form, root a squared, or square root of root a squared. This will become then my a, which is x minus 2. And then it's the absolute value of that. Or just x minus 2 without the parentheses, but the absolute value.